Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just want to make a quick video. We're going away for the weekend, Friday through Sunday, just 3 days. But I want to talk about the steps we take to prepare for our animal care and our fish as we're going away. But before we get started, I want to take a minute to tell everyone that I'm now the father of a teenager. Happy birthday, 13, to my Jenna K. But before we can go on vacation, the first thing we have to think about before we can even think about the fish is our fur babies. Our little Yorkie here, she is spoiled rotten. Our Yorkie Poo Maggie is not enthused at all. These are both lazy lap dogs that I don't know what I'd do without. They stick right to me. So we obviously have family they can stay with, so that's not a big deal. The fish, if it was just my reef tank, it wouldn't be that big a deal, but 3 days I think the tank would be fine. The seahorses, they might make it, but that's not ideal at all. Luckily, I have a wonderful sister-in-law that will come by and feed. Times my mother and stepfather will come by. They're on a vacation, on a mission trip to Peru. I hope you guys are having a great time. But for this trip, my sister-in-law will be coming by. I don't want to be a burden on anyone. I just ask them to come by once a day and feed the tank. So feeding the fish is handled. 5-gallon auto top off on this tank lasts at least a week. I don't run a heater on this tank. It's just at room temperature, so I don't have as much evaporation. Hey JoJo, this fish has the most personality of any fish I've ever owned. A lot of people ask how hard seahorses are to care for, and they're really not that hard. They do have, some specifics. The tank has to be cooler. They can only have certain tank mates. I have 2 MP10s in here for flow, so obviously they can handle flow. They just need lower flow areas too. They do have specific diets they have to eat, and mice and shrimp, and they need to be fed often. But for 3 days, once a day is perfectly fine. Obviously the filtration has to be up to par, and I've been fighting some hair algae. I'm working on that. It is improving. There is a lot of detritus in here. I need to do a good water change and clean all that up, but 3 days away, I'm not worried at all about this tank. On my reef tank, again, 5 gallons will last more than 3 days. And then that leads into, a lot of people ask, is the Neptune Apex really worth the money? Do you really need the automation? And no, you really don't. This tank can run perfectly fine without it, but it makes things a whole lot easier, especially going away. I'm not afraid to leave this tank for a week at a time. If the temperature gets out of range, the pH is out of range, the pH most likely will go high. The last time we went on vacation, the pH peaked out at like 8.6. No big deal because we weren't here, our dogs weren't here. I'd be more concerned if it was going low. But the Apex will run things perfectly fine for me, and send me any notifications if anything does go wrong. There's really nothing to worry about. All the lights are on timers. The calcium reactor is pretty well set. Don't have to worry about that. And I don't have any fish that have any real hard requirements. The anthants are about like the seahorses. They just need to be fed multiple times a day. But for 3 days they'll be fine just once a day. But that's basically all I do to prepare for a trip out of town. The way everything is set up, it runs itself for the most part. You know, I think once you figure your tank out and what works for you, you kind of know the daily requirements, the weekly requirements, when you need to test and what you need to be looking for. So I've pretty well got it set that right now all I'm doing is topping off, feeding, and letting things grow. So let me know what you guys do in the comments below, and we'll catch you next week when we get back.